Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. So today, finally, a lot of you have been waiting for it. We have Whoop on the podcast. His name's AJ Baker, coming from the Whoop team to give us a little more information about Whoop. Now, Whoop is it's another fitness wearable, but it's unlike a lot of other wearables out there. Its focus is recovery, really primarily recovery, and then also the strain that you hit throughout the day. A lot of professional athletes are doing it. Serious athletes are using it. And they've recently changed business models, and they also base this stuff off a lot of science. And like I said, it's very different from other wearables. And if you have been listening to the podcast or you're one of our athletes, you know that I wear a Whoop, and a lot of our garage gym athletes are now wearing Whoop. And something that we discuss in this episode is the fact that we could create an online virtual team of Whoop users just inside of our garage gym athlete programming. And we kind of talk about that as something I wish that we could do. Now, we've already done it. You've probably heard on other podcast episodes. Since recording this, we've already made that team. And so it's really cool. If you're interested in Whoop or just recovery in general, how to recover better, I would listen to this episode. But the big disclaimer I want to throw out there for everybody is that we have no real affiliation with Whoop, no financial ties, no kickbacks, nothing like that. I know that you can get approached by a lot of other companies, podcasters, bloggers, whatever, who do that. We don't do that. We are just introducing you to a product that we use and that we love, a lot of our coaches and athletes, like I said. So just know that the intentions going in that we weren't paid to do the episode. We don't get any kickbacks. There's nothing at all in it for us. And so if you're interested in it, check it out. Either way, like I said, if you focus on recovery and want to become a better human, also a good spot for you today. Without any further ado, let's listen to this episode with AJ Baker from Whoop.
All right, AJ, welcome to the Better Humanology podcast, man. I'm glad you're here today.
Yeah, man, thank you. It's exciting to be on here. It's been a long time coming. Yeah,
we've tried scheduling a few times, and I had to go off and have a baby and all these other things, but we finally got it on the calendar, man. So I'm glad. So let's start how I start every guest off. We're going to start with some challenges and recommendations, if you don't mind. So I'm going to give you a fitness challenge. If you could challenge me and all the listeners to some sort of fitness challenge.
36 hours of sleep in a week. It might not seem like all that much, but we're gonna try and push people to the 8 hour a day, man.
Yeah, that's
I'm talking 5 days too. Say 7.5, a little over 7 hours in a 5-day week.
So just making sure that you get the proper amount of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right, where everybody knows you need more of it, knows your body will function better with more of it, but you just can't feel the immediate impact, except from maybe Saturday morning when you get 10 straight, but especially for a lot of the younger adults who are out there working hard. So it's one thing I always try to push people to get more of, because, the more you get, the better your body's going to feel.
Yeah, and that's something I can relate to right now. Just
I'm sure you're dealing with it, yeah.
Because my sleep, I mean, this is my third kid, but the other kids had figured out how to sleep, so I was getting some really solid sleep. I was pretty on point. It's been very important to me. So for, probably 2 years, I've been getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Not every night, but
there you go.
Pretty consistently here and there. And now I think I got so good at sleep over the last, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years. Not getting as much sleep, now I can really see moving the needle backwards. Wow, I'm off my game, especially mentally.
Totally.
I can get my workouts done. I'm sure I could probably be a little bit more intense. I'm about to actually test a bunch of benchmarks here in about a month. I'm sure all of them are going to be a little bit lower, but I can just tell working on a day-to-day basis, I'm I'm getting this done, but I'm not I'm not the normal version of myself on a little bit of sleep.
Same way for me, man. I used to do the go to bed at midnight, get up at 6:30, call it 6.5 hours of sleep. And then eventually I realized that it was more like 5.5. And I would wonder why I would get sick every 4 months. It's kind of like, oh, well, if you're sleeping 5.5 hours a night, you're not going to get that done. And then, once I switched over to that, 7 to 8 hours a night consistently and kind of maintaining sleep hygiene and a good routine, now that we're busy and I'm more busy, I'm on the road a lot more. I'm getting back to that 5.5 hours. And it's exactly right, man. I'm just foggy. My brain just doesn't work as well throughout the entire day. And that's the big thing. I can push through workouts, but the mental component of the whole thing is really, really, that's the part that I'm struggling with now that I'm kind of backtracking for sure.
Yeah, it's phenomenal how much of an impact sleep can get. Yeah, I mean, just to hit that one more time, my daughter slept a really good stretch 2 or 3 nights ago. I ended up getting almost 9 hours of sleep because she only woke up like once to eat, and my wife fed her. And when I got that much sleep that next day, I was like back to normal. I was like super motivated, getting all this stuff done. Just like it was an awesome day, and I'm like, wow, sleep really is that important. So I'm glad that you did that challenge, man. That's really awesome.
We'll see how well people can do. I mean, it's tough. See.
All right, man, how about a mental toughness challenge for everybody?
Mindfulness practice, without a question. I mean, this is the one thing that I look at now as the game changer for sure, especially being able to kind of see it through the lens of Whoop and as a kind of way to prove that it is helping me out. I have an ongoing history of Alzheimer's and dementia in my family. And a lot of it is, one of the early predictors of that is a lack of REM sleep. And, now that I spend more time focusing on sleep as a whole, noticing that I get a whole lot less REM sleep than I'd like, or than the norm. Practicing mindfulness has been one of the harder things for me to get into, as I'm a person who's just, I like to go, go, go. That's kind of how it's always been. So getting myself to commit to, that it's almost like perseverance training. We have to get yourself to commit to doing something over and over and over again, even though you feel like you're not really getting any benefit from it. And then, after a couple of weeks of doing it, practicing meditation or using something like a Headspace to try and get to that stage, it really makes a huge impact on the quality of your sleep and the way your whole body feels and operates the following couple of weeks after that. And now it's become an incredible habit for me. So I challenge everybody to do that for sure. Mindfulness practice is a huge piece.
And I'm gonna foot stomp that one as well, because I was doing that. I had a pretty solid morning routine. I mean, going on 3 years probably, and then it kind of got off kilter because I was picking as much sleep as I could over doing my morning routine, which typically when that stuff gets done, I was like, oh, I'm going to put this morning routine stuff on the back burner for a little bit. I'm going to try and get a little bit of extra sleep until the baby figures things out, which means I kind of cut mindfulness meditation out of my routine. And I've noticed a big hit on that lately too. I'm like, I'm just not as on point. I'm reacting to things a little bit differently than I have in the past. And now I sat down just today to do a 10-minute meditation mindfulness practice. And it was very challenging, because I've been off of it for about a month and a half, and it's really hard to get back into it.
It was so hard for me to get started. Just thinking about, I probably started doing it 3 or 4 months ago, and just getting started was the toughest part. But now that I'm in it, I feel like if I were to stop, my stress levels would just go through the roof. Like, right. in a matter of 24 hours, I'd be a completely different person, and a lot less fun to be around.
I can tell you that it does happen. I'm trying to get back, trying to rein myself back into who I once was. But it's in time. All right, man. How about a book recommendation?
A book. We'll keep it on the same theme here. I actually I read a book recently called The Inner Game of Tennis by W. Timothy Galway. It's about the mental approach and the mental side of peak performance, right? It's, teaches you to kind of focus your mind, avoid things like self-doubt, how to overcome nervousness, distraction, things like that. And then, also diving deep into, that state of kind of relaxed concentration is how they refer to it. Is, ultimately getting your mind into a point where you can get back to that same baseline and, be able to focus specifically on what you have to do that next play. Or, in this situation, it's, by building skills through smart practice and ultimately trying to put them all together. So that way, on those big game days or, for in any situation, I use it as a, way to kind of that kind of mental frame to approach my day-to-day work life, right? If I have a huge presentation to give, just the amount of preparation I'll do mentally heading into it to make sure that I'm ready to go and be able to, deliver on a high level is absolutely key for me at this point. So, the foreword is actually by Pete Carroll too. And, I've been a huge fan of a lot of the people in his network lately. I know there's other podcasts out there like Finding Mastery that people are kind of diving into, and Pete Carroll's in that. So this is actually kind of what turned me towards this book in the first place. And, it's a really interesting take on the mental side of peak performance. And I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle, but just for me that I had never really tapped into until about a year ago. just, focusing in on that end of things. Physically, always pushing yourself, but then breaking the mental sweat has been the new introduction to my life in the last year or so.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Something I'm very interested in is mental toughness, mental performance, and there's always seems to be a great resource from tennis and golf. I guess because they're such individualized sports, there's always really good literature from the coaches and performance psychologists, behavioral psychologists, and stuff on helping those athletes specifically. I guess because you have a little bit less of a team to rely on, and that's how a lot of us operate. Like, even if you have a team, sometimes you might have your, coworkers or whatever, but still it's you having to perform. You are on the line and your mental performance. So I think that's a great skill to pick up, and I appreciate the recommendation.
For sure. And it's like, even specifically in sports like golf and tennis too. I mean, you have so much time between plays. Like with a golfer, there's so much of it is just based in focus and the ability to focus in on one thing at a time. Same thing goes for tennis. It's one volley at a time, and golf, it's one shot at a time. And being able to kind of control that is such an important piece of the puzzle for these athletes. And I think for people in general, right? Approaching each day as one day at a time without getting ahead of yourself or too far back, it's a really interesting way to kind of approach things. And, absolutely it's been a huge factor in my growth as a person.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get an introduction from yourself. I appreciate the challenges and the recommendations. So maybe a little bit about your background, and then, history and coming on board with Whoop and everything. I would love to dive into all of it.
Absolutely, man. So a little background from me. I actually, I didn't study anything close to what we do here at Whoop, which is kind of the fun part. I played football up in college at a small D3 school in New York and studied political science and sociology, weirdly enough. And then after school, got into the marketing space, knowing, I could read, write, and analyze things critically, but didn't really love it. The main thing is we had one client. I'm here in Boston, and I spent a lot of time, working on the Celtics, was one of our clients at the time. And for me, it was kind of like, that was what really got me going, was being in the sports world, talking with athletes and just people who are in that setting. So needed to get back into it. And I actually had bumped into the right person at the right time who was telling me about this company called Whoop. And, we had known each other for a little while. So he asked me a little while ago, he's like, so, we never talked about, football for you. How did that finish up? And I mentioned to him, some days I just felt like I played better on Tuesday than I did on Saturday. And he was like, well, oh my God, you got to come meet the guys at Whoop. So he introduced me to Will, who's our CEO and founder, who kind of stemmed the idea of the company from that exact phrase. He was, and this is, multiple years ago, but so I started out working here as part of our performance group. I spent my first 6 months probably reading nothing but physiology textbooks and learning how to interpret Whoop's incredibly deep and kind of unique data set, and ultimately figuring out how to interpret it for athletes and coaches alike. This is before we were selling a product on a consumer level and really only working with professional and collegiate teams. So my job with them was to serve, almost more like a consultant than anything else, and really help them get every little value that they could out of Whoop. So to backtrack and talk more about, this kind of the start where we came from, Will Ahmed, our CEO, he was an athlete at Harvard himself, and asked himself that question for sure, which was just, why do athletes perform better on some days than they do on others? And how can we predict when those best days are going to come, so that way we can make sure that we're doing all the right things to make sure we choose when those best days happen. And just being a type A personality and an absolute, competitive go-getter. He went out and spent a couple of years figuring out, meeting with hundreds and hundreds of cardiologists, exercise physiologists, other types of doctors, and reading medical papers nonstop, just obsessed with the idea of optimizing human performance and trying to tap into his own inner potential there. So that was kind of the foundation. And then, lucky enough to meet people like John Capitalupo, who's our CTO, who had a background of his own, or his dad had a background in exercise physiology, and John kind of had the technical chops to really build this product. And, so his idea, or Will's idea, and John's ability to build it was really the foundation. So this is probably 2012, 13. And then in 2014, the end of 2014 really started to have a product that we thought was worth getting out in the field. So this was, we started off with some of the highest level pro athletes around. And we got a bunch of great advisors on board early to kind of give us direction and ultimately feedback on what the best way to kind of guide this product would be. So, over the next 2 years or so, we really worked with nothing but collegiate and professional teams. The product is actually grounded in team sport, ultimately with the idea of, can we get strength coaches enough information to, rather than generalize, but further individualize training plans for athletes? Who needs more time in the training room? Who needs more time in the weight room? How hard can we push this person today to make sure that their body's not taking on more than it should to, for lack of a better term, avoid overtraining and injury? I think that's the number one thing, is that we found so many elite athletes push themselves to the brink and end up training at a 50% level when that's just kind of, what they're used to. The no pain, no gain attitude is not necessarily the smartest way to go about it. So those ideas and those kind of cliches have really been a driving force in how we push forward and ultimately try to approach physical fitness and athletics.
I think that's something that comes along with just these hard chargers, like athletes and military alike. I know it came out a few years ago that, everyone thinks of Navy SEALs as these, peak specimens, these alpha males and doing incredible things. And while they are, most of the time they're operating, like you said, at about 50% of themselves, because they're not getting any sleep. They're not focused on recovery, all sorts of things. And they obviously, with different human performance team that have been put in special operations and stuff, they're trying to fix a lot of that stuff, helping athletes, focus on sleep and recovery and all that. But same thing, it's like they found out, like, wow, you're doing pretty good, but like you could be doing way better and you don't even know it, because you feel like you feel like you're doing pretty well. Now, going back to, I think that we should zoom out just for a second. Most everybody listening to the podcast knows that I wear a Whoop, because I like to collect data on just about everything, our athletes, myself, anything that I can. But can you just give us for people who, maybe they missed those episodes or they've never heard of Whoop, just give us a quick, what the Whoop strap is and what it does.
Right. So, the product itself I would call it a wearable device and analytics service, right? So, with the goal in mind of trying to educate athletes on everything that their body does from a physiological perspective. So that's basically just starting with, when you go to sleep, you'll wake up first thing in the morning, have every bit of sleep information you can, from how much you needed that night to all the quality, to the quality of your sleep, overall recovery first thing in the morning. I think that's the bread and butter of our system, is that recovery analysis, being able to see, on a 1 to 100 scale, how ready your body is to go out and perform, and then tracking exactly how hard your body works in a given day from start to finish creates this, I think, a really unique and holistic tool to view exactly, everything your body does from a stress perspective, and being able to use heart rate variability, which is, I think, our most impactful metric. Let's just catch a glimpse into your nervous system. And that allows us to factor in even more things that could be affecting the way your body and your brain are performing on a day-to-day basis. So, we call it a performance optimization system.
Yeah. And I agree. I know everybody, I have no affiliation with Whoop other than being, a super fan. For anyone listening, I feel like people think there's always some sort of, other motive for me doing an episode like this, but I really just think it's an amazing product. And some of my background, let's just say with wearables, I had tried really anything and everything, spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars between Fitbits, Jawbones, Atlas, like all these companies who were like, because the way I train is very different, and the way our athletes train is very different. We don't, sit around and do bicep curls. We don't just run. That's running is like they have a heart rate monitor and you're good to go. Like that's all they really want to know about. I tried everything and nothing ever delivered. And then once I found Whoop, and it's like, yeah, we don't really track steps because we don't care. And on top of that, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can log which exercise you did, but you guys don't really care if it was a snatch or a clean and jerk or a CrossFit workout or a long run. You're going to just analyze the data of the workout. And that's what made me really start to like Whoop. I was like, okay, I don't have to come in and like log like, oh, was that a curl or was that a bench press? I'm like, no, I just like, what did I do? And then you guys added the automatic activity detection. Now I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, there's more to come there too.
Except just live my life and then go train. And then after I train, it's like, hey, process this workout, and then it tells me. So it's a really cool device. You guys have thought about just about everything. But
I think that
go ahead.
That workout piece, I think, being able to track, because I think that's part of the beauty in it, is that it's super objective, right? Like, I mean, you could look at any different workout across Whoop, and the way that we calculate stress and strain, as we call it, is the main, it's really, it's a cardiovascular load for the most part, but all types of stress really factor into the thing. So you could look at one workout, which you thought might have killed you, and turns out it wasn't that much on your body, versus another one which you could see as, wow, that was really really easy, but the way that we perceive it is that it's a lot harder on your internal load. So that's like the way that the kind of whole thing is set up, is that it does give you more perspective into how you're approaching each day, and really what affects your body in a unique situation. So, I mean, I think the objectivity and the calculations are all really, really important.
And another thing that I've learned is, at first I was like, I'm just going to take the Whoop off while, for the first couple months of the baby's life and not wear it, because, to be honest, I don't want to know. But what I've learned, I decided I only took it off for about a week, and then I was like, no, I kind of want to see like how bad it gets, if it gets bad. But then once, what I realized though, because, no, it's actually a good story, because what the Whoop has done for me over the last over a year now that I've been wearing it is it's really made me hone in on recovery and just find out what good recovery practices are, and I've become really good at that. And so now I've been treating just training and having a baby like I need to ultra recover every single day. So every single day I'm just doing, I'm making sure I'm hydrated, I'm eating clean foods, I'm doing all of these recovery techniques. And at first it was a little rough, but now even with, shorter amounts of sleep, I'm still getting green recovery scores because I'm just so focused on everything else. Now, had I not been, basically trained on how to recover well over the last year and a half, I don't think I'd be there. I think all my if I just threw on a Whoop last month, when the baby came, I think all my recoveries would probably be red, and I wouldn't know what I was doing because I wouldn't be as in tune with how my body specifically recovers. And I think that's something that's really cool about the Whoop. Now, can you talk about how that recovery score is kind of, calculated or what factors into it?
For sure. I mean, I think the number one weight in there is our use of heart rate variability, which I can get into pretty quickly. What heart rate variability is the tiny amount of time between variations, in the variation between beats of your heart. So if your heart is beating 60 beats per minute, that doesn't necessarily mean it's beating 1 beat per second. It could be 0.5 beats between, or 0.5 seconds between beats once, then, a full second between the next two beats. And then, those our intervals are always changing. And that's driven by competition between, your two halves of your nervous system. So while, you have your rest and digest part of your nervous system that tries to lower your heart rate, your fight or flight tries to bring it up. And that competition between the two of those creates variation and ultimately resembles the balance within your two nervous systems, and strongly correlates with how ready your body is to take on both physical and mental stress. So that's our number one weight in the whole score. But it also factors, we use resting heart rate as well as a factor, for a few different reasons. Number one, I mean, physical conditioning in general is usually based off of, heart rate. It's a low resting heart rate. It's a good sign there. And when it's increased and raised up, a lot of the time it's due to dehydration or, stimulus late at night, working out too late at night, eating too late at night, things like that you can really kind of address with it. Total sleep performance is another big factor. And then the stress your body took on the day before. We do add in minutes of sleep, even hours of sleep, depending on how stressed out your body got throughout the day, prior to going to sleep. So that recovery score is a really, really holistic view at everything that's going on in life on a day-to-day basis. So when you wake up first thing in the morning, to have that tangible percentage and to think, okay, what did I do yesterday that earned me this recovery? And what can I do today to make sure I earn a better one tomorrow? That's really how it's supposed to be approached. And I think that's why it's a unique thing for a lot of athletes to see for the first time. I know for me, it was like, wow, am I really, this is what my lifestyle is earning me on a day-to-day basis? It's kind of like, oh man, I got to make some changes here. And then even, it's cool to hear that, you've kind of actioned it on your own, in this last month or so. It's a really way, because there are different things you can do to make up for recovery if you're not getting sleep. I mean, sleep is a huge component, and in my opinion, probably the number one, but then things like nutrition are so important to the way your body recovers. And, even in terms of how it, affects stress in life, those are, nutrition, hydration, and overall just thinking about what needs to be done each day and all the little things, mindfulness. There's so many different ways you can add in, spots of gaining ground on the recovery that you haven't gotten through sleep. So it's really cool to hear your side of things there too.
I'm sure you've worked with a lot of different athletes, and what's, I don't know, maybe a top 3 recovery items that are maybe not focused on or lacking in most athletes that you see that can almost be immediately fixed?
Sleep routine and hygiene. Those are like the number 1 and 2 thing in my book. That's, again, we focus a lot on sleep and the way that, and the habits that people develop, like just simply removing a phone screen from your room before going to sleep. What that does for sleep quality is insane. Blue light is a really bad thing for sleepers. So, I've definitely had the issue where you go to sleep with the TV on or something like that, or, that really does affect the way that your body gets into specific stages of sleep, whether that's slow wave sleep, so your physically restorative state where your body releases human growth hormone, and ultimately builds up the muscles that you've been beating down for so long. That, if you have, you're staring at the phone screen before bed, you'll probably spend less time in that stage of sleep, which is so crucial for athletes to get. And the same thing goes for getting into REM sleep, right? Like I've had issues with it. So something like mindfulness is it's a tough thing to introduce to an athlete, but if you can get them to do it, that improves the way that their bodies recover so quickly. And then, I think for a lot of guys, it is that nutrition side of thing. Eating the right foods is so important for the way an athlete recovers on a day-to-day basis. And those are the 3 things I always turn to right off the bat, is improving sleep hygiene and routine. What I mean by routine is also, kind of going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time. Those are huge. And if you do that, your sleep ends up kind of leveling itself out and getting the sleep that it needs, more so than trying to fill areas with, other types of light sleep if it can find them. So I always turn to those 3 things. So it's sleep routine, sleep hygiene, and nutrition are my big ones for sure.
Yeah, and I've been noticing some pretty interesting, just to share a little bit more on things I've been tracking sleep-wise, is I was always focused, like I said, I got pretty good habits on sleep over the last couple of years, and then, but one thing I noticed that I couldn't really, I tried to work on a lot was getting more deep sleep, because my deep sleep was very low.
Yeah.
And what's weird is I was able to increase it. I did a bunch of different things a little bit, but what I've noticed now, kind of with the baby and getting a little bit less sleep, I don't know if my body's more tired, but I'm getting almost like 2 solid hours of deep sleep right at the beginning of the night, almost every night. It's like my body immediately like goes into this like deep sleep right away. I don't know if because it knows like what's coming, because she normally sleeps pretty well at the beginning of the night. It's getting closer to the morning time. So that's always pretty interesting. Have you noticed anything like that with the different sleep cycles and athletes' performance?
Yeah. For a lot of the time, the athletes who are pushing their bodies the most tend to probably need the most slow wave sleep, but tend to get a lot less depending on, a lot of the time it's scheduling and things like that, right? It's like when an athlete is working out super late at night, their body's going to be overworked getting into bed, and then, probably going to be harder and harder to get that sleep. But the way that, it kind of works, right? So your body goes after the sleep that it needs the most. So if you're, acutely sleep deprived, which you probably are in your case right now, which I'm not saying is the end of the world, everybody doesn't catch up on sleep always, but, it'll basically kind of jam the sleep stages it needs the most, into sleep as soon as possible and go after what it needs the most. So your body at this point is probably feeling pretty run down because it doesn't have enough time, in that 8-hour period it's used to getting, to try and find areas in which it can, sneak in slow wave sleep or sneak in REM sleep. So it's going to be searching for, what your body needs the most. And, a lot of the time that sacrifices other stages of sleep. So for some athletes trying to, make that initial improvement, the number one thing is slow wave sleep typically happens in the first 2/3 of the night for most people. So getting into sleep with a nice, kind of like I'm talking about earlier, hygiene and avoiding things that can affect that early on, getting into those deep sleep stages of sleep early on is the best way to kind of improve all of them. The more time you get early on, the more time you'll get overall. So that's the number one thing, is just finding ways to improve the quality of sleep through hygiene and routine, I think, are the number one things for that.
That's awesome, man. And like I said, I found all this data very helpful, but I'd love to, kind of talk about the company a little bit more, because you guys just made a big switch, a big change, and I'm sure been working on a lot. You guys moved from kind of a one-time purchase model to more of a subscription-based model. So if you could talk about the reasoning behind that and what it provides the athlete.
Yeah, for the longest time, we've had two basic business models. Since about 2016, late 2016, when we first launched our consumer-facing product, which was, we started out at retailing at a 500. All of our professionals and collegiate programs are on a subscription-basis model already, which has, a ton more bells and whistles, a lot more access to our support and performance groups here, and even our data science team does a lot of work with them as well. So I think the two big things are, number one, lowering that barrier to entry to get on the platform in general, rather than having to pay $500 up front. That's a tough pill to swallow. So being able to lower it down, we're now it's $30 a month with 6 months to start. And then, you have that 6 months to decide whether or not you love or hate the product. And, from all engagement numbers that we have, people seem to really, really like it. And then the other piece of it is that we want to bridge the gap between those two offerings, right? We're going to be including a whole lot more analytics and reporting capability from our teams here, whether that's on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis. We're going to be able to generate a lot more information and kind of resource through the app we have already and from the platform we have in place. And then the other piece is that we're going to be improving. Over the last 2 years, it's been incredible how far we've come in terms of things like, developing even, for a while, we didn't even have sleep auto detection, which is now every single night, and every single user gets that. And then there's stuff like, as you were talking about earlier, workout auto detection is up there. And then being, the next step in that phase is being able to develop workout auto classification, which means that, we can pick up specific workouts that you've done in the past and automatically input them for you. You don't even have to think about which one it is. So there's a lot more stuff in the tank, and our product roadmap is about 2 miles long at this point of different features and components and other bells and whistles that we need to add in and make this the best tool for anyone trying to take advantage of the information that we have and ultimately improve themselves through science. There's just so many different pieces that we need to continue to add in there, and with the membership, it allows us to develop this community even further and really kind of bridge the gap between our team solution and what our consumers have been getting.
And so I'm curious, just because I don't know a ton about the team side of things. I think
Right.
I poked around on your website and found some information a while back on teams. And to be honest, we have a lot of Whoop users in our community, and I've been thinking about setting up a team because I think it'd be really cool to kind of get an overview from our athletes. So what can you do with a team, and what does that provide?
On a basic level, there's certain social component to the whole thing, right? Like we have a ton of training facilities and CrossFit affiliate boxes that have their own unique little team page. And what it does, it almost serves as a method of retention for some people where, they can see each other's information there. They can compare recovery scores. And when we get people competing over who can sleep more and recover better, that's when we've done our job, right? But
right.
What our team solution is really focused on is taking all of the, what I would refer to as the digestible information from Whoop, right? We tried to break it down into those 3 main things. So, recovery, strain, and sleep. We tried to break everything down into those buckets. But what we really do is we extrapolate a whole lot further on those. So we'll be pulling numbers on travel data. You give us information on travel. We can look at the exact effect it has on recovery. If you jump from, the 49ers are going from San Francisco to New England, that 3 hours time zone difference on, when should they be heading out based on how long it takes their team's body to adjust. Or, we've done that with a lot of the Olympians who are traveling all over the world. And even things like, we help basketball teams manage minutes based on stress load. So, whose body's in the best position to go out there tonight? Does this guy play better in 8-minute stretches or 12-minute stretches? How does his body respond to that? So the amount of stuff that we can really pull out of here and ultimately understand training adaptation and cardiovascular load for some of these guys is really, really valuable. And ultimately what we try to do is, like as I was talking about earlier, we serve as consultants in terms of interpreting this stuff to help teams avoid those small injuries, those soft tissue injuries that, ultimately can kill teams. It's like, you look at a 100-man football roster, if 60 guys come away with some type of soft tissue injury throughout the year, if it's a hamstring once, it could be a quad next, and then a lower back after that, and then an ACL tear just because of overuse. So what we really try to do is help people understand what is the right amount of overreaching and what is not. And breaking that stuff all down and through the team we have here is really, really special stuff. some of the work we've done with these teams is incredible stuff.
Yeah, and just bringing it to our community. I was just having a conversation with one of my coaches about this a few days ago, because you guys are talking about if we were to set up a Garage Gym Athlete team, which is our daily programming, and I was just talking about, since we're a 100% online community, delivering workouts all around the world, people being able to see, let's just say strain, which is how, basically, did you work out today or did you not work out today? The accountability, at least for me, is off the charts.
Next, man.
Is like, if I knew all of my athletes or if the athlete ever knew, like, hey, we're going to be in the app, we're going to be looking at, basically, did you work out? And you can't fake it. There's no, like, we did this challenge in our Facebook group recently, kind of an accountability piece where every time an athlete completed a workout, full week's worth of workout, they'd post a screenshot in our group, and we were doing a lot of cool stuff around that anyway. But you could fake it. I don't know. I don't think any of our athletes actually did, but you could fake it. There's no way to fake your heart rate data over the course of 60 minutes without putting in the work. So I'm talking about accountability off the charts with this team feature in Whoop has me really, really excited.
Yeah, and that's like, it's so many guys end up talking about that. It's like, I had one guy say to me, this is my personal accountability tool. For him, it was kind of like, number one, if I'm not sleeping enough, it tells me. We even had one coach refer to it as Santa, right? He's like, Whoop's like Santa for me. It knows when you're awake. It knows if you've been bad or good. I mean, the whole thing it's so funny to hear. And, as a coach, it's definitely a unique thing, especially being able to see it from all over the place. Being able to do it remotely is really, really fascinating stuff, because it all shoots right up to the cloud from the app.
That's really cool, man. Awesome. Well, I know a lot of cool things are coming from Whoop. We can't dive into any of that stuff yet, but is there anything that you do want to share or could share about, anything maybe more in the immediate future?
Yeah, I mean, just like I was saying earlier, we just launched this membership service, and I think the idea there is to really be able to give the best possible product to our users. So I'd be on the lookout. I mean, like I said, we have the next step in our cycle here. One of them would be those, something like workout auto classification, being able to become that smartest wearable out there and smartest, analytics service. So I think there's going to be a whole lot more stuff coming, and it'll be an exciting year for us for sure, and for all of our users, especially those who got in early on us.
So I want to know, what do you say to someone who says, just because I've heard, like, I just feel like some people don't understand, but at the same time, I'm not selling the product, I'm not on the Whoop team or anything, so I don't have to make a huge effort. But someone from the company specifically, if they're like, well, the Whoop doesn't, tell time, or it doesn't answer my phone calls or send text messages, all that. What would your response to that be?
It's not designed for that. I mean, people who are really interested, if that's the deal breaker, then, it's probably not for you. I mean, the idea here is really that we do believe that every single person out there has some type of inner potential that they can tap into if given the right data source. So being able to see something objectively, that tells you everything from how hard your body works to how much sleep you need on a given night. If we can help you, improve the way that your body feels on a day-to-day and the way that your brain is functioning on a day-to-day, just from giving you a source of truth information, all of the other stuff is just kind of obsolete at that point. I mean, so it comes down to, what are you looking for? What kind of problem are you really trying to solve? Do you want to read a text message from your wrist and talk into your wrist, or do you want to, kind of approach things from a really holistic view and take charge of your life and your health for that matter?
Well put, man. And that's similar answer is what I normally give is like, yeah, I mean, what are you really trying to achieve? Like if I'm coaching you and I see you answering text messages in the middle of a workout, you're going to get slapped in the face anyway. So, what are you looking to achieve?
It's like, if you really want to make those changes, it's kind of like you need the buy-in. If you're gonna change the way your body looks, feels, and functions, you got to really try to do it, right? And if there's one way to do it, it's to avoid getting the satisfaction of 10,000 steps and get something that's gonna keep you accountable and push you to be better. That's really how I think about the whole thing. If you want to approach it from a performance perspective and really move forward and make gains and understand how they're happening, this is what you want. But if you'd rather have the latter or the former and kind of, like I said, go for all the little screens and features and add one more to your life, this is probably not the same thing. But it'll be, who knows? Maybe we'll stick a screen on there at some day.
Well, just going back to the 10,000 step thing, because I know, I don't remember which wearable it was, but my friend had a team battle going on, or a family battle. Him and his family were seeing who could get the most steps in a day, and it was kind of connected socially. I've never actually done any of that, so I don't know how it all works, but he was telling me how his sister would like just sit there and like shake the thing, like shake it and to get,
that'll do it.
And she would get like 20 or 30,000 steps. And I was like, and that going back to that, just that accountability piece with the Whoop, if we make a Garage Gym Athlete team, is like, there's nothing maybe you could watch a scary movie, like maybe, and it might register like a really short workout if you're really scared of the scary movie, but like that's about the best you could do. Otherwise, you need to put in the work, which I think is the best part about the Whoop.
It's funny. I'll tell you one of my favorite Whoop stories I've had. My highest strain day. So I've run 5Ks. I play a ton of basketball. I'm in the weight room. It's like those things get me up there, but my highest strain day is actually when I moved. I was stressed out. I was upset about everything. I'm carrying couches up and down 3 or 4 flights of stairs, and I think I racked up a 20 out of 21 for my strain that day. I remember looking back on it like, wow, that was tough. And then my recovery the following day was, in the high teens at best. It was like, I never would think about moving as taking something seriously out of my body, but holy crap, it really did.
Well, the exact same thing happened. So I moved here from Texas to North Carolina last year. And I didn't think it would take that much of a toll, but I thought my Whoop was broken because my heart rate variability was like severely lowered, for several weeks. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I feel okay, but I was so stressed out from the move, I couldn't get back to my normal self. And then finally things like kicked in and I got back to my normal self after that.
That's the craziest piece, man. These last couple of weeks have been, a lot of long nights, a lot of days on the road, especially, as we get geared up for our big launch. And, definitely a lot of work and a lot of stress happened. So Whoop was basically telling me you're under recovered, even though my body was feeling fine. My potential for, my highest level performance just was not there. And that, the stress really does factor in. And I think that's one of the most unique things about our product.
Very cool, man. Well, let's get back to you. We're going to do the quick fire questions of the show, then end with the questions. So to you, what's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Hardest workout I've ever done?
Yeah.
Let's see. I did a long Tough Mudder. That was tough, but hardest workout in a general day. It was 15 burpees, two sets of hand cleans. It was a long circuit. I didn't come up with it, but it beat the crap out of me about 4 minutes. We'll say that.
Oh, nice. Nice. All right, man. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Building mental toughness, mindfulness practice, meditation is really, really there for me. No question. Just being able to get started doing it and then continuing to do it, that's improved my way of life substantially. I
love that answer. All right. Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oof, God, that's tough. I'd say the thickest resistance band I can find.
That's a good answer, man. That's
I'm just trying to think about how many different things could I do with one piece.
Well, that's what I think. I think bands are making a comeback. I think
either that or a barbell. Maybe some 40-pound dumbbells or one 55 kg kettlebell, something like that.
Awesome. All good answers. But which one are you ultimately going to go with?
I'm going to switch my mind. I'm going to go with the mid to heavy kettlebell.
Okay. Awesome, dude. I love it. All right. Now, the question of the show, what is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? This is 100% open-ended.
Sleep as much as you possibly can. That's the number one thing. And in terms of, my quality of life since I've started here, just getting extra sleep and improving the way I approach sleep, has not only made me more priority oriented. When I say that, I mean, just like making your bed in the morning, the first thing you do, if it's a task done and check off the list, you'll be in the task you'll be task oriented for the rest of the day. By prioritizing sleep, it has completely changed my mindset on how I approach every single day. Trying to get as much as I need, literally will remove things like, oh, my sleep's going to be ruined if I eat too late at night. I shouldn't have a beer tonight. It's going to ruin the way my sleep looks. Just by approaching it from that perspective, I've gotten rid of a lot of the bad habits I've had in my lifestyle. I haven't been sick in a year and a half. And, ultimately my body feels better. My brain's moving faster. So without a doubt, it's get more sleep.
Awesome, dude. All right, now what's the best place for people to learn more about Whoop and everything you guys are doing?
I would check us out at whoop.com is our website. There's a decent amount of stuff circling around the internet right now about Whoop and everything we've just kind of launched and put together. But whoop.com has a ton of info, and then we'll be coming out with more and more stuff as we go forward. So keep an eye out.
Awesome, AJ. Well, it's been a blast having you on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
For sure, man. I appreciate you having me. And it's awesome to hear your perspective on the product and how it's kind of helped you out. I really love that, man.
Yeah, it's been a real game changer. Like I said, I've tried everything. Never tried getting on a podcast episode with any of the other producers of those. Those wearables. But the Whoop for me is where it's at.
I love that. We're honored.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.